Good morning and welcome to DGF Live. This is episode 56. On today's show, we're going to take a look at audio, particularly the F3 versus the MixPre3. I've got my camera here, so I'll sort of go through what it's like to use the field recorder. And then after that, if we have time, we'll get through to some of what we didn't get time for last week, which was the Companion layers, which is taking Companion, which has 99 pages, a little bit deeper. So using the depth of those pages if you're running out of space, how to consolidate buttons. But let me know where you are joining from in the world today. It'd be great to hear from you. Drop that in the chat where you are coming from. And I can see we have in here Jules already. So where are we here? Jules, loyal neighbor from the virtual studios in Manhattan's Upper East Side. Looking forward to our mutual streaming event. We will get that happening very soon. Great to have you here, Jules. What did you guys get up to for, I mean, if you're in the US, 4th of July, rest of the world probably just continued on with their lives. But here in the US, it's a little bit quieter this week as people are taking vacations and enjoying the summer. It's been very hot this year, so it's been nice. Got out of the city for a couple of days and had a bit of time in the pool. And back in the city now, back to work. So as we go along, drop your questions in the chat, anything to do with live streaming, photography, video production, all that kind of stuff. And I can answer those questions for you. In the meantime, let's kick off with a look at today's topic, which is audio field recorders. And it's about capturing audio for mirrorless and also cine cameras, but particularly mirrorless cameras. So right here, I have a Canon R5C, which is now my sort of primary camera, which is a 8K video and a 45 megapixel stills sensor. So it's a hybrid camera. I've got a 50mm prime on there, and this is a sort of typical kind of interview setup with a matte box on the front here, top handle. It's got a cage supporting it so that I can mount more things off it and rig it a bit better. Now, one of the main things that you need with the R5C particularly is battery power, because the internal battery is not great. And so I have taken this way of mounting the battery on the side here, and that just makes it easy for me to pull apart and put it back together. And the nice thing about the USB-C power is it's hot swappable, so I can actually, if this is, and over the last week I've had some very long interviews and times where I've had to switch out the battery while we're still recording, and that's not been a problem because the internal battery will just kick in and carry over. Same sort of thing goes with the audio recorders. The two that I'm looking at are the F3, so that's this one here. Let me see if I can swing this around and give you a back look at this. And so I've got the Zoom F3 here, which is a 2-channel 30-bit float recorder, and then I've got the MixPre, which I've mounted down here. Now, I've only had these two for a week, so haven't been able to fully test them. I did find the MixPre a little more complicated in the audio monitoring, and so I did pretty much all my recording in last week on the Zoom F3. So let's take a look at that one, and you can see here I've got just a shotgun microphone. Hello, 1, 2, and this is a little bit different to other recorders. It doesn't really have dials for adjusting the post fader. It's more just like looking at the pre-fade level. So here it's quite hot, so I can actually bump that down a bit so that it's not clipping. But even if it was clipping, I could in post go back and normalize the audio again and recover those clipped audio. So that's one of the really nice things about it when you are doing a one-man band. So I would say if you are primarily, the best thing to do with audio is hire an audio person, because they're going to be focused solely on that. They're going to be able to follow the microphone a bit better. So if you've got your shotgun microphone over someone's head, where are we, like this, and they're moving around, then a proper professional audio recorder will like follow that, and so you're always getting present audio, and so that helps a lot. So, but the scenarios where maybe it's a smaller interview and you don't have a sound recordist with you, and you are filming and doing the audio yourself, that is what I'm looking at here, and I will look at 4 audio recorders. Let's start with the the previous ones that I used. So that was the Zoom, zooming in here. Let me see if I can find this one. So for many years, I had the Zoom well, if we go back to like 2010 or something, I had the H4, which got replaced by the H4n. It had terrible battery life, and then, and particularly in the cold, it would just die right away. So that was not a great experience. But there are many filmmakers who had these recorders, and I then sold that, and I've upgraded to the Zoom, what do you call it, H6, which is losing all of its rubber coating. So over time, it does lose all of the, like this is all coming off and it's kind of gross. But this has been a great backup recorder, and even when I've moved on to other audio solutions, this has always been in my kit because it's very handy if you go to an event, being able to just plug this into an audio desk, capture a line in, and this is quite versatile, the bunch of stuff that you can do in here. It's got 4 XLR in, if I can catch the light like that. And you can USB power it off this old school USB port. And then it has 4 batteries in here, which I'm using rechargeable ones there. So that's been pretty good. And then there were a number of years where I had, let's come back here. I had and I don't have it, it's down in the box, C200. So this sort of scenario, obviously if you've got something like a camcorder, C200, 300, 500, all that kind of stuff, they have XLR in, so you can actually get 2 channels of audio in. And for this scenario that I'm talking about in terms of like a smaller interview, that is obviously the way to go because it's already in camera and it's synced already. When you get rid of the C200 and those sort of bigger cams and you go to a mirrorless line, then obviously you don't have the XLRs in, and then also you often don't have balanced audio in. So you're just running with a little micro jack, which is this kind of, it looks like a headphone connection. Let's plug this one back in here. So you're going to have sometimes some interference, and that's not going to be as good as running balanced audio. So when I went to the R5C, that's where I got this Tascam device, which I really wanted it to hit the spot in terms of getting 2 channels of XLR audio in, but I am sending it in for repair. I feel like the preamp in this is blown. I think I talked about that previously. I should have sent it in ages ago. I just haven't got down to the post office. So maybe that'll be my mission this week, is to go down and actually mail this thing off. I've got the RMA form and all that kind of stuff ready to go. It's been sitting there for a couple of months. But it's still in the studio today. So to compare that to this one, what we're looking at here is basically the promise of this Tascam for something like the R5C is that it's got these hot pins here. So that means when you plug that into the shoe of your R5C, or I think the R3, that these digital pins will speak directly to the camera, and then basically you have professional, so to speak, audio in here with some actual knobs for adjusting the volume and setting the phantom power and limiter and that kind of stuff. And then you can, on this side, you can mount a microphone in here, and then you've got your 2 channel inputs here. So that is that Tascam, and like I said, I used it on a shoot last year where I just wasn't happy with the audio quality, and so since then that has presented me with this problem of like, I really like the R5C. It's very because I shoot both stills and video, and I've got 2 cameras, so I can have matching cameras for a 2-camera shoot for interviews, or 2 cameras if I'm needing 2 stills bodies. So that works well, and I like being able to dress it up and dress it down depending on what I'm doing, or even just to like take the cage off entirely if it's just me running around town or just doing personal pictures, and having all of the same glass available to shoot with. So that's where I need to find a solution to rig this audio onto here in a way that's not too Franken-rig, in terms of trying to get everything on here and keeping it fairly streamlined. This is very modular though. So this, I think I've got my, let me see if I can pull up my camera shot here. So the modularity here is great, and it's really built on these rails. So I've got a small rig base plate which has some rails, and that's what the matte box is mounted to. And that also has a Arca Swiss base plate here that the R5C cage actually has built into the base of the cage. So I don't need an additional plate to connect it. The cage goes straight into the rail grip here. So the rails allow me to put on the matte box, and also on the back end it enables me to mount this Teradek device if I want to send that out to a director's monitor for wireless video monitoring. And then I've just been able to connect up this MixPre down here, even though I haven't got that fully up and running. And then the other one can sort of, this F3 is basically in a cold shoe, so I can sort of mount that wherever is easy. I could do it here on the, so I've got like a time code recorder here, a deity time code, and that has a cold shoe in the side of the cage. That's not a bad spot. The main thing is, the challenge is when you're trying to, like if I was to put a microphone straight, a shotgun microphone straight into the zoom, which you could do, it just gets a little bit weighty. So instead of this one, I could plug this one straight in. Let me just go in here and see if I find that. Okay. So now, pull up my shot with the camera overhead. Hopefully you can see that. So that is something where I could have that mounted like on the side like that. So that's not a bad spot, and I do have a shock mount for that, but like I said, the weight can get a little bit kind of heavy. So my preferred setup here is going to be this Zoom F3 mounted securely, and then using just a short XLR cable like this one, so that the actual shock mount, and I don't have this yet, but the shock mount for the audio will be like it would be normally for a camera, and doesn't have too much weight on it like that. All right, I'm just going to let that hang there. But just to show you some of the rigging that I've got going on here. Get that out of the way. Okay. So I have a bunch of stuff from over the years that lies around the place, and I had this small rig monitor which was I was trying to use it as a monitor mount, but let me just jump into my close-up here so you can see what's going on. So this small rig monitor mount was meant to be for a monitor, but it was so wide that it was blocking some of the cables coming down. So it's just been lying around, haven't really used that, but it worked really well for this because this is where the battery compartment is underneath here. And if you put most quarter 20 plugs here are going to block this door. So it's kind of nice having that door accessible. And then this one, you don't have to, you can screw it in within the mount itself like this. So that will go in, and then it's actually pretty solid as far as this kind of connection goes, and it doesn't flop around. And that's the main thing I didn't want, was it just, I just want it to be easy to mount and not slipping around once you get shooting. So menu, get out of this. Okay, so let this one hang down there. I'm mostly talking about power and rigging in this more than actual audio quality or comparing the two. But one of the things that I liked about and let's go to this one, this battery, which is the Nano 2, so it's a 100-watt battery, is it's got a USB-C out, and that's what I'm powering the R5C with, but it's also got USB-A, and that is enough to power the audio devices. So it just means that all of my powering can come off the one battery, and then I actually have a D-tap underneath, which will be the cable that will power the Teradek wireless one, and also my monitor up here. So everything's coming off the one battery, so it just easier to manage batteries that way, because I know when I'm getting low, I do a battery change, and then all of the components in the system have power, and I'm not like switching out different bits and pieces. And also, it's pretty much hot swappable because of the internal batteries that are in the camera and in the audio recorder. So you'll see on, go back to my MixPre down here. Okay, so you'll see the audio coming through here. It stopped. If I pull out the audio, so I've disconnected that, the battery symbol has popped up here. So it has automatically kicked into the battery supply. And then find that cable. Where has it gone? There it is. And so then when I plug that back in, the unit has switched back to using the USB power for the most part. I feel like sometimes there is, it's popped up again here, sometimes the power on these things can turn off if they're not drawing current. Sometimes yeah, I did, there's once or twice that pop it in. I don't know what's going on there. The other, there we go. We're back onto the power, the battery power there. So the other challenge is a ground loop. So the problem with the unbalanced audio and using the same power source means that when I feed the line out from the Zoom F3 into the R5C, so that I can actually just get a sort of backup recording onto the camera, then if you're using the same power source, there's this kind of kind of sound on the audio track. So it's getting, I think it's some sort of ground loop. So the answer to that really is that you need to use a different power source. So that's where there were sometimes I had to use actually two batteries, mainly because I wanted to get a clean track on there. But if I did just want to record it, that ground loop's not recorded onto the F3 itself. It's a clean recording on the F3. And you're always going to use that one anyway, because there's just going to be a lot more, fidelity to work with there. All right, another question here. Martin says that the volume dials on the Tascam are too small, fiddly when trying to adjust them. I have a camcorder with similar sized dials. Not great experience, especially in the middle of a shoot. I think that's true. And also, I mean, not only are they fiddly, but when they're sort of mounted on top of a camera, and particularly a smaller camera, which might be on a lighter weight tripod, then anything that you're pressing here might show up in the picture in terms of the camera having a bit of a bump. So depending on your rig, whether you need to get it onto the camera for quickly moving around, or if it's a sit-down interview, then you could keep your recorder totally separate. Then that is, yeah, I definitely think there's a benefit there. Martin also says, do you sometimes feel, I wish I could go back to the simplicity and all in one of the C200 instead of all of this rigging? Yeah, it's one of those things where you look at, it's kind of like when you look at a price on a menu at a restaurant and you go like, oh, 16 bucks for some food, that's great. And then they add on tax and tip and whatever else, and suddenly it becomes like $30 and it's a lot more. So it's that kind of stuff with here where you look at an actual, I should get my other body out, but like the actual DSLR type, or I guess the mirrorless body is small, and you can look at that and be like, wow, what a light form factor to do a shoot with. That is going to change my life. And then once you start talking about like adding on a Teradek receiver, then that needs to be mounted somewhere. It's kind of chunky, and it also needs power to it. And then suddenly all these things just add up, and and then adding on time code and audio receivers, and then honestly, the matte box is sometimes just for show. I feel with clients, they see the big matte box and it makes the camera look like it's punching above its weight, even though the lighting setup may not necessarily need a flag or something like that, but they do look pretty. So, but I do agree that the all-in-one solution is a lot easier, particularly for small things. When it's just like a small interview, you want to get in and get out. All of this rigging up of stuff takes a little time to get that out of the kit and to put it together. So it's not as, it's not really an ENG type scenario. So the next thing to look at really is the MixPre3 down here, which I've only had it for a week. I've only had both of these for a week, and I just did not have enough time to fully road test it. And so I'll show you where I got to. I mean, one of the main, so the difference between the F3 and the MixPre3 is the F3 only has 2 tracks, whereas the MixPre3 can take 3 microphones, but it's also got USB in. It's got a lot more comprehensive audio monitoring and mixing, and timecode is probably the biggest thing. Probably timecode alone is the main reason that I would use the MixPre3 rather than the Zoom F3. The Zoom F3 is so tiny and handy, and it's super cute, but the MixPre3 gives a lot more flexibility with timecode. So let's go into that. I'll see if I can pull these together. So I'm going to pull this out of there. It's going to run a battery. And because I know I don't have much battery on this one, I'm just going to plug power into the MixPre3, and we're going to turn that one on. So let me see if I can go in there. All right, so we can zoom in. So I've just mounted this on the back. I probably could mount this vertically or even just take it off. I kind of liked this that's the other thing about the MixPre3 is, so it's got a Allen key that you can go through this side and screw in a 1/4-20 here. So you could mount your camera directly to this base. In this scenario, I've just got a little rail mount that I have here because I can just slip it on and off easily. So this is saying USB-C power is low, battery is present. Would you like to run on battery power? I'm going to go no, just because I don't want to burn out the batteries. On the back side of this, it's got, in this little sled are 4 AA batteries. You can buy a sled for 8, and also a Sony LP, not LP, NFP, whatever battery. It's kind of like this Teradek one back here. But I kind of like the small form factor of this, so I'm just going to stick with the battery sled that's in there as the backup power, and then mainly power it off USB-C. And you can, for the most part, run it off an underpowered source. It's either 2 or 3, I can't remember exactly, but it's going to compensate for the power, or by underpowering it by, you can only have, I think, 1, maybe 2 phantom power microphones running. So you wouldn't be able to run phantom power on all 3 microphones. Which is, I think that's a good compromise. And for the most part, I'm usually using like 1 boom and then like a lapel microphone in, which is more of a mic level. Okay, so this one looks a lot more modern than the F3. Like, the F3 has this sort of black and white dial. It's also a weird way of recording. Like when you go up to, there's no SD card in there at the moment, but you go up to record and up again to stop, or else the stop button. And there's a little red light here, but it's not, you got to look twice to be making sure this little square becomes a little circle. So it could be easy to sort of miss that one. Whereas the MixPre3, I wonder if that has, yes, it does have an SD card in it. So it's just a lot more apparent that, like, yes, we are recording. And also the menu is just newer, and, it's color menu, touchscreen. So touching on this will show you the different tracks. I put it is in advanced mode. So one of the funny things with this is there's a basic mode and an advanced mode and a custom mode where you can choose between the 2. When you get this out of the box, it is in basic mode, which basically has it recording a stereo mix in 48, what do you call it? 4816 or 4824, one of those 2. But by default, out of the box, it's not recording in a 32-bit float audio, which is kind of annoying because I feel like that's one of the main sales pitches of, like, 32-bit float, you can never clip. So you've got to sort of go in and pull that up. This one, there's a lot more going on in here. It takes more time to, it's not, I wouldn't say it's like overly complex, and I think it's well laid out. But there's one thing that I haven't not been able to figure out, which is the right channel in the headphone monitoring. I don't know if my unit is just defective or if I've messed up this audio monitoring. But essentially the way I've set up this one is I've gone into here. So, so touching the middle of the screen will show you which tracks you're adjusting to. Touching down the bottom is going to show you your recording bitrate and how long you have left. The top right here is going to bring up the menu, and then you can flip through here. So up here we've got the system at the end, and then the mode here is basic and advanced. So I'm going to this will reboot when you switch between it. Okay, so now I'm in basic mode, and the gotta get back home. And the monitoring is just a lot more simple and basic, as it says. So to turn on 32-bit float, you need to go back into the menu, go into system. I'm getting lost again. So it's very small here. Oh, I lost it. There we go. Basic. Okay, I'll turn on advanced. It's going to sort of reboot it. So now we're in advanced mode. We can go back, and now when we go to our channels, you can see there's more options for soloing, adjusting the gain, the pan, and mic input, output, phantom, all that kind of stuff. Also under the home, under record, I think that's right, you can up your sample rate to 192 if you want to just max that out. And you can up your bit depth. It's funny, so I went back to basic, and it's obviously bumped it back down to 24-bit, and then when I went back to advanced, it has kept it at 24. It didn't put it back to 32, so this is where you would go, what's this saying? Switching to 32 float, configuration, MixPre3 continue, okay. Okay, unit will restart. Okay, and it's fully restarted to put it into a 32-bit float mode. Which is pretty quick. USB-C power is low. Would you like to run a battery? Nope. All right, so now I'm able to record a left-right channel, and then I can arm the tracks 1 or 2. So here I just turned off track 2. It's gone to gray. But I can do that all a lot more manually. So this is definitely the way that I would like to work. But the challenge is that I've had, and maybe someone has one of these and they can set me straight on what I'm doing here, because I haven't been able to figure this one out. Hopefully you can see that okay. Where are we? So once you go into advanced mode, you can't just monitor left and right. So because I was trying to monitor, usually I try and monitor like my boom in the left ear, and so I would pan this one left fully, and then channel 2 I would pan right, like that. Cool. I don't have any microphones plugged in too, so that could probably help. I'm just going to plug this random one in, which I think has phantom power. Okay, there we go. There's my microphone. Okay, so microphone sitting on top. That should hopefully get some, what do we got here? Mic 48, phantom power. Excellent. Go back. The gain, we can turn the gain up. I can't quite see all of my menus under here. You can turn this gain up. And then we go back home, and we should see some levels coming in. All right, so that's a little bit hot and whatever, but we'll work with that. So we have some levels coming in, and if I go back here, when I pan it right, for some reason, where are we? Pan all the way to the right. It just wasn't coming through the headphone out port. It comes through the stereo out. Haven't been able to figure that one out. So, and that's even with, once you go into, so once you're in manual mode here, you have to set up the headphones into, that's the playback menu, to monitor it. So from this main menu, I would go to headphones, And instead of LR stereo, I'd go into a preset. So I'm on preset 1, I would edit preset. I'm going to choose preset 1. And you can see here I can scroll through, and green is pre-fade and blue is post-fade in terms of what I want to listen to. So on my left side, I've chosen that I want to hear the pre-fade of, where are we? 1, 2. So green will be pre-fade on channel 1 and channel 3. It'll be in the left ear, and then you can see on the, get my thing here, on the right ear, I should be hearing number 2, and it is just not coming through the headphones. So anyway, that was that's an example of something that just takes a little bit more time to figure out than the Zoom F3, but there is a lot of potential in there. The main reason that I'm going to stick with this, and even if I have to return the unit to try and figure out this thing or factory reset it, is the time code, really, because there's just a lot more flexibility with that. This has a timecode generator in it, whereas the Zoom F3 doesn't, and that's a big thing if you're coming to multicam. Let's release this one here. So, and the way that I've worked with this before is that the my daily timecode, I've got 3 of these, so these go on different cameras, and then I've got my MixPre3 hopefully, and then that'll be doing all of the timecode sync. That said, the Zoom F3 sending audio into your audio file works really well in Resolve for automatically syncing that. You can basically, in a bin, just select all the files and right-click, go sync via audio, and append clips, and it just dumps it all in there. So that has come a long way over the years. I don't know if anyone remembers like Pluralize and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's going back a while, and these things are improving. So that is a look at the audio situation. I think when I get any more clarity on what devices I'm using, I will update you on that. I think the long and the short of it is I plan on potentially getting rid of my Zoom F6. I mean, I could just leave it around, but I got, you get too much cruft of just old gear that you don't really use. And I think I'm going to replace the Zoom H6 with the Zoom F3. So that'll be my backup audio recorder. Also, because it's super small, I don't know, if I'm going on a hike and I want to record a stream, that's, I guess how they market it. But that's going to be a great backup audio recorder for smaller mounting onto the camera. And then my main audio unit for these sort of smaller shoots where I haven't hired an audio person, that'll hopefully be the MixPre3, fully set up, monitored with the headphones and with the time code going. So I think there is room in my production life for both of these devices, and they're pretty neat. I think that's about all from that. The Zoom F3 was very, very simple. I think my main thing with it was the Bluetooth thing always asks you to turn it on or off when you plug it in. I wish I could just leave it in. Also, I feel like the monitoring out is a dual mono. I haven't figured out how to separate those channels. Maybe it's in there somewhere. Other than that, everything was looking pretty good. All right, let's take a look at some more questions, see what we've got, and then we can jump into our next segment here. Martin, thanks for the comments. I heard that Canon has suspended the release of the live tracking app for the CRN300, and they're concentrating on the 500. Hope the setback is not a total cancellation for the N300. Interesting. I haven't heard that, but that's good to know. So for context, if you're new to the channel, I have 2 Canon N300 PTZs. That's what I'm recording on here, and they're sort of Canon's entry line to the PTZ market at about $2,500, and then the 500 is $5,000, and the 700 is like $10,000. So quite a jump when you get up to the higher end of that. I wonder if that is to do with the processor in it. I would have to look at what chips they are, but I know that the processing of the tracking and all that kind of stuff, and I remember having this conversation with a Canon engineer last year. They were trying to work out whether to put that processing into a computer application that would do that or to put it in the camera, and it looks like they've actually put that processing of tracking into the camera itself. So I wonder if maybe the 300 doesn't quite have a fast enough processor or something to handle it, and maybe is throwing up some bugs that they don't want to deal with. Good to know that. I'm kind of keen to get some 700 cameras and just sort of compare them also for the eye tracking on it. Hopefully I'll be able to do that at some point soon. Next question from Martin. Have you seen or considered looking into the new Mackie DLZ mixer? I have not, but I am looking at mixers generally. DLC, just going to Google this while we look. Mackie DLZ. It's like a 12 channel digital mixer, $800. Interesting. So, what would you say? I think auto mix feature would be a great help for one technicians like us who are responsible for both audio and video. On that note, I think that's one of the things, and I haven't fully tested this out before either, but the MixPre3s have, you can buy a plugin which is like a mix assist. I think it's another $50 or $100, and install that firmware update, kind of like all these add-on firmware updates, right? And that will, if you've got a whole bunch of microphones plugged in, that will basically ride the gain, which can help a lot. I've used that once or twice with the MixPre 10, which I did consider getting for this, but I think what I want here is just keeping it small and simple, and it's all very well to get like, you know, an 8-channel mixer and have a bigger unit, which would be something like, let me see if I can pull up this one on the MixPre. I think would be, no, it's a bit too, let's pull out a bit. It would be more like, you know, MixPre 10 would be more like that. So it'd be quite a big unit, and then you're probably going to mount that to the tripod or something rather than to the camera. MixPre3 is a really handy little camera device that you could actually put, you know, the camera body on top of it and that kind of stuff. So that is handy. So the Mackie DLZ, let me see if I can pull that one up. We have, I think this is what you're talking about, 12 channel. What's in the back end here? So we got 4 preamps. Looks really neat. Nice little something to sit on the desk. I'm looking for something a little bit bigger at the moment. Something that would take, you know, 8 to 16 inputs, more rack mountable. But and is that auto fader? I love auto faders. I'm really not loving the where are we? On the, this is my Zoom L8 is okay, but it's like it doesn't, the faders don't remember where they were other than some sort of digital mark that you have to go in and press that around. So anyway, that looks cool. I think, yeah, for a sort of solo YouTuber, that looks like that would have a lot of flexibility, and they're obviously marketing that at the sort of creator level. So that's nice. The one that I was looking at, which I thought was really interesting, was the, let me try and find it. Yamaha DM3. DM3, I think that's the one. Yeah, I think this is the one. This one looked kind of interesting, which is got a bunch more inputs. So this has got what, 16 inputs, 8 out, and it can also take a Ethernet cable to a stage box or something like that. So you could have something up at the stage for microphone inputs, and it's running Dante, and it's $2,000. That looks appealing. I don't think it's out yet from what I can see. It's not in stock yet. But then the other side to this is that whatever mixer I do get really needs to be compatible with Companion in-depth, obviously, so I can program that and sort of automate everything in the show. So that is my main thing right now, is trying to figure out what mixer is going to work with the Companion the best, because that is at the end of the day kind of what I need with everything else that is going on here. What do we got here? Jules says, Yellow Box phone being a wireless camera working fine with laptop, but phone for the same procedure does not want to work. Any suggestions, David? Yellow Box phone, wireless camera. I'm not sure what you're saying in terms of using your Yellow Box with phone being wireless camera working fine with laptop. I don't know if there was a Yellow Box phone. Is there? I haven't seen it. I thought it was more of a tablet, but I'm not quite sure how to solve you with that one. And Martin says, my A10 Mini Extreme HDMI input 3 stopped seeing any image, just black. It strangely works when I put HDMI splitter in between the source and the A10. I don't know, but I had a lot of problems with the Extreme HDMI version last year, and they ended up replacing it, which I still have in a unopened box, and I need to sell that. But I feel like those ports can get really hot and then falter. Otherwise, if you're putting it through a splitter, maybe it's to do with the scan rate or something. Like, maybe try just to troubleshoot it, set your ATEM into a interlace mode rather than progressive. I think it has that. Does it have that? I don't remember. Or like just sort of try a different base format, like 2398 versus 2997, just to sort of see if you can get it out. But that can be kind of, yeah, they have their quirks sometimes. All right, we are getting close on time. We've got about 15 minutes. Let us go to our next segment. And I've touched on this before, but I just wanted to consolidate this in a sort of more easy to understand section, which is giving Companion layers. So Companion has 99 pages, and if you need more space in that, you can't really go beyond that. And what I've found in designing my new Companion profile is that for creating something for a 4ME that would also have like an Extreme and a Pro sort of all in that bundle, and then the PTZ cameras, all that kind of stuff, I'd probably need about 400 pages to do that. And like I said, Companion only has 99, so it means that I have to be very economical with how the buttons are put together. And not just that, but I think when it comes to operating solo and using Stream Decks and that kind of stuff, you don't want to jump through a whole bunch of pages. You want everything kind of there. And so that's where I've been using Companion's custom variables to modify the operation of what I am doing. So I'm trying to think of the one to show you the use cases of that would be, so if we go into here, it's my my current build, so this is my home screen that I'm running the show from. In the menu page, I'm going to have 3 ATEMs that I'm building out. Get my ear out of shot. And each of these ATEMs have the same functions. Like, they all have upstream keys, downstream keys, media player, audio, auxiliary, multi-view, super source, or like the Pro doesn't, so they probably need to gray out. So rather than taking another page to have, ATEM 4ME and all their functions, and then ATEM 2 with all their functions, and like it just fills it out, and then it means you're hunting for it. I'm doing things where I'm using variables to consolidate that. So on the one page, I can say I'm working with ATEM 3, or I'm working with 2, or I'm working with ATEM 1. And you'll notice most of these stay the same. I haven't finished building this out yet, but this sort of mix effect layer here is changing between ME, Extreme, and Pro. So let me zoom in a bit here so we can see what is going on in the menu. So keep my ear out of shot. So each time I press these buttons, it's changing a variable, which I've just called atem, to either 1, 1, 2, or 3. And then on the back end, that is changing what these buttons target. I haven't fully built it out, but I've done the ME1. So when I select atem 2 and I hit extreme, it's going to bounce out to this atem extreme page, which is kind of the old design, which I haven't, basically I'm building the 4ME version. And then when I finish building that, I will downscale it to fit extreme. So that's that button. And then if I go to atem 3, go to the Pro, I'm sort of redesigning the Pros page there. I go back there. And then the main atem 1, the mix effect layer is going to go over here. And again, this is all a work in progress, but point being that this button here is dynamic and it's jumping to the function that I want to target. So let's take a look at, I'm going to jump out of this one, and this one, and this one. I'm going to go into Companion. So page 99 is my buttons here. So you can see that if I click on atem 1 and scroll down, I've turned off all these ones, so we can ignore that. Basically, it's saying set the raw value to this value. 1 is custom. So the custom variable is going to be atem. So the custom variable that I've made is up here under this tab. And under variables, custom variables, I have a whole bunch of custom variables that are created. And you can see under here, there's an atem 1. And you can set it to persist the value, which means that, well, if you have that off, then it's going to say whatever the startup value is in here. Every time you start up Companion, it's going to put that value into the current value. Whereas if you click the persist value box, then it's going to always remember what you did last. So for most things, I kind of like that. So that's currently 1. But if I go into my thing down here and I change it to 2 and change it to 3, you can see how these are being updated in the system. So that's basically where I'm storing which atem I'm targeting, 1, 2, or 3. All right. Now we need to be able to action that. So if I'm going to atem 2, when I click on this button here to go to the home page of that atem, it needs to take me to a different page, to the atem 1 and the atem 3. So the way that I've taken to building these things is the first step is always a directional step. So it is going to say, if this condition equals 1, 2, or 3, then go to the next step in this button. And the reason for that is when you reboot Companion, all these steps get sort of reset to step 1. And it's kind of feels like a bit of a bug that it doesn't remember that, because you could have a bunch of step actions that are, on step 3 or something, and you've set it to that, and then Companion gets rebooted and then ends up on 1. So you might have a whole bunch of switches that are kind of out of place. So in designing this, the way that I've taken this is to basically make step number 1 the direction, the step that directs it to the action that we're going to take. So step 1, I'm using an internal action for the button set current step if variable meets condition, and I'm using a custom variable. Let me see if I can make it more space so you can read this here. So I'm using custom variable, which is the internal custom atem variable that we made in the variables tab. And I'm basically saying if this variable equals 1, then go to this page, this button, and step number 2. And then I'm repeating that for each subsequent action. So if the value equals 2, then go to step 3. And if it equals 3, then go to step 4. So it's sort of the step is 1 ahead of the actual number that I'm targeting there. And then we also need to add in at the end of this internal button trigger press, which is press this page and this button, force pressed if already pressed. So down here is where you would find those actions to type them in. So you would type in like trigger press, and I'm not press and release, we just want to do trigger press, and that same command would come up. And the important thing here is force pressed if already pressed, meaning that we want to go to that button and we want to press it and to action it. Otherwise, we've just set the step to 2, 3, 4, but we haven't actually taken the action that is on those steps. I'm just going to delete this because we've got 2 of those. Okay, so, and this is conditional, meaning that if this is not true, so if our ATEM set to 2, right? And so this action here saying if our ATEM value equals 3, go to this step, go to step 4, that's just not going to run because it doesn't, it's not true. Whereas this middle one here, ATEM equals 2, then go to step 3. That is the one that'll trigger and that action will be taken. So if I jump to tab 3, basically this is when I press this button, it's going from step 1, jumping to tab 3 here, step 3, running this action of setting the surface, and then I've got this other action here, which is saying set current step to number 1. So we're sort of resetting this button back to step 1 so it's ready to be pressed again. So again, that is set current step, set current step. That's the action that you would find there. Delete that. Remember, if you don't know where to find these things, obviously I'm using sort of keywords to pull up the actions here, but over here is a little folder icon. And if you click on that internal, you can actually scroll through all of these actions and just click on them and it'll add them in there. And so it's, you know, in terms of if you're trying to remember what to do, and then always once you've added something in, it's going to be in this recently used menu here. So it's easy to add multiple things in. And if you're trying to duplicate something, there's a copy button up here for each action. So once you've done the first one, it gets easier as you go along. All right, so my ATEM is number 2. And so we've jumped to tab 3 and we are taking this action here, which is setting serial number to page. And I'm looking at, so the current surface. So whatever Stream Deck I'm pressing this button on, where are we? So it'll be, this is the button I'm working on down here. Set it to page 59. So that's where I could choose any page that I want to jump to. And for that's ATEM number 2. For contrast, if I hit ATEM 1's variable, which took me to step 2, then that would be taking me to page 16 for ATEM 1. And under tab 4, you can see I've got page 77 is where I'm got the home page for ATEM 3. So that is going to jump us around. So now that I've got ATEM 2, I can hit this button and I've jumped to the ATEM page here. I'm going to go back. If I set it to ATEM 1, it's going to come to the ATEM 1 homepage, and ATEM 3, hit that, it's going to go to the ATEM 3 homepage. So that is sort of a look at how that works for variables, if that makes sense. Awesome. If it doesn't, let me know. And there's so many actions that you can take this concept with and build it into other aspects of companions. So, for example, what I'm starting to do, or what I've done some of, is under the audio menu, is I'm redesigning the ATEM Pro audio menu. There's a whole bunch of ones here. So it looks like this. Make sure I'm on the right thing. So where I'm using a variable here is between a fade and a gain. So the ATEM has a fader input and a gain input. And rather than having to build out multiple pages for fade and for gain, I can put them on the one page by using this variable. So under variables, I have somewhere under my long list of things, I have one called audio. Actually, I've got too many, so I'm going to go up to custom and I'm going to type in audio, and this is going to filter the variables, which helps when you start to get lots of variables. And you can see here the value is fade. And then if I hit this button down here, I'm going to switch modes between adjusting the gain and adjusting the fader. And you can see in the variable store up here, the actual letters are changing from gain to fade. So I use that for two reasons. One is because I want, so these buttons in here are adjusting the levels. So I can increase, so I'm up here to, the fader is on +9, whereas I can also make it -6 or something. And then if I wanted to increase the microphone gain that was coming in here, I could add in a couple of gain like so. And then also in here, I've built in a reset in terms of resetting the gain and also resetting the fader back to 0 if I want an easy way to do that. And then because I've put fade or gain as actual letters into the variable, it means that under here, my feedback, I can sort of draw those variables out to show which state I'm on. So rather than having to create a toggle button where you've got your base state and then step 2 would be like the latch on button. The downside of that can be is if I'm saying fade is the base and then gain is when I'm adjusting gain, that button is not referencing whether I'm actually in fade or gain mode. And so I might have to double press that button before it actually starts toggling it to the right step. So that's where having this variable know whether it's in fade. So the variable is determining whether it is fade or gain. And I can use this two-step approach to use my, and you can see here, my first step is taking the action, remember? So we're saying if the custom audio equals fade, then go to step 2. And if the custom audio equals gain, then go to step 3, and then also press this button. And so under 2, this is where I am setting the raw value to gain. So I'm flipping the switch, and then I'm setting the step back to 1, and vice versa. In 3, I'm setting fade to, so if I come in on the gain, this action is going to change it to fade. And so I've created a toggle button, but it's a smart toggle button because it knows what it's going to hit first time rather than having to double hit something, which you don't want to do if you're in a show because every second counts and you can't sort of mess up when you're going live. So that is where now when I press this button, it's adjusting those gains. And then here I've just sort of created a feedback layer in terms of showing highlights of whether we're adjusting the gain numbers or the fade numbers like that. So again, the same buttons are being used to adjust gain or fade. But if you click through here, again, I've got the step 1 saying if we're on fade, go to 2. If we're on gain, go to 3. And then on 2, I'm adjusting the gain, as I say. Yeah, no, the fade. So the fade is on 2, making those changes. And on step 3, I'm adjusting the gain. So that is how all of that is functioning. So hopefully that makes sense. And there's other ways that you can use that. Also, just quickly, the other way that I'm using that, and I won't go into explaining it too much, but under what am I going to go to? Let's go to my Stream Deck. So under my upstream key, this is something where, you know, I've got 4 upstream keys, and each of them have like presets of moving the box left. I won't do this at the moment because I'm using this circle pattern, but in terms of a DVE, I've got some presets here. At the moment, they're just for key 1, but I'm going to change this so that when I select key 2 or key 3, and I'm operating on, so for example, key 3 layout, when I hit this same preset, it's going to move that box right, or it's going to put a DVE pip in the corner, depending on, you know, which layer I'm working on. So that is the way that you can kind of consolidate some buttons and just sort of save space, but also hopefully make it easier so you're not bouncing around so much in depth in the profiles. What do we got? Wrapping up. Good question. How do you anticipate? The next DJ update is coming soon. I know I've said that a couple of weeks. I've been showing you the things I'm working on, so you should get an idea of how it's going to operate, like, you know, what that audio page looks like and how some of the menus function and all that kind of stuff. So you should be able to see it sort of coming to life and what it's going to look like. I've been going through like redesigning H2R to run more smoothly. So I'm not on that page, am I? Let me go over here. Let me go, here we go. So in terms of VLC, we'll have that update, and H2R is going to be updated so that with one tap I can put graphics on and off like that. And you can also do things like long press to queue. So I could queue this website and I could go queue this one, and then I can go run, and it'll bring multiple graphics on at once. And then I can go hide or take them off. So that's much easier. And then if you long press and you go, actually, I don't want that to be running, you can long press and it will remove that one. So some of those things are being brought into H2R. I've updated slides, so that is much more functional. And this is the Mac version, and I'm going to do an identical Windows one as well. So hopefully that will play nice for people who are on Windows. And what else have I got in here? I'm still trying to add in like this depth that I'm talking about, the layers. So I've got super source for super source 1, but then this is actually jumping pages here. So I need like two super sources for the bigger ATEMs, and audio is going to have like, you know, 40 channels. And so I don't have that. Like I've built it and designed it, but I need to basically copy it and replicate it across pages, and that takes time. What else have I got in here? The auxiliary page is really cool. So with the bigger switches, you know, you can have 24 outputs, and you can just select here on. Let me go to my. Where is it? My wider shot here. Auxiliary. This is nice because it can jump around different auxiliaries, so I can have a routing and like the source and the input. Sorry, the destination and the input, so I can route different ATEMs. And I also I've been able to build in a long press, so I can actually pick an auxiliary channel out, so an HDMI or a SDI, depending on what you have, to be the channel that gets selected to do long press. So it means that I could, for example, rather than my floor monitor, I could select my teleprompter, so that when I long press these inputs here, I can take a quick look at camera A and then go back to the multi-view, that kind of thing. And then I've also got jump keys, so I can go to so if I hit, I'm going to jump around. Okay, so I'm going to go here and then jump back. So I can basically have a one-touch routing, so I can go select teleprompter 2, and I'm not going to change this one, I'm just select it again. And you'll see it, I'll jump forwards and backwards in terms of what I'm selecting to route, and then what I have coming in. And getting back home and back to all of the keys. And actually now I can see that I've put my jump and jump back, and I'm going to turn that one off. Got a few other cool things that I've been working on in terms of downstream key and media pool, and so having lower thirds that are sort of semi-automated, because I always felt with doing lower thirds on an ATEM, it's a lot of clicking buttons to try and bring on a lower third and then take it off. So I've worked out a way to, in the media player, sorry, I got to bring up my shot here. So in the media player, I can basically, and I don't have anything loaded in here, so I can't show you, but I can either select a still like this, or I can long press it and it will push that still into the downstream key, bring that on air, and then you can also choose under downstream key whether you want it to automatically time out after 7 seconds or so. So that means, let me just turn that off because that's not something I want on all the time. That means that you can essentially have a button for, or, just say you have 8 people who are in a panel and you've got their graphics that are loaded into the ATEM. You've got a button where you can long press it and it'll put their name up on screen, and then it will automatically take it off screen after a certain number of seconds. So that's really neat. Some of those things I think are really cool just to make life easier when you're switching, because otherwise it's, as I said, a lot of clicking back and forth. All right, I think that's all for now. Let me see what we've got going on here. All good. So until next week, where are we? Start this one. davidjoshuaford.com is my website, or David Joshua Ford is where you can go to find me on Threads if you're doing that. Thanks for joining, as always, learning about audio, learning about Companion. If you have any questions or things that you would like to see in a future update, do drop that in the comments and I can build a show around answering some of those questions. But until then, have a great week. I'll see you next week. Bye.